So one thing when I was looking at the news this week, and the first story is kind of not just one story, but a few stories wrapped in together under the banner of investors and broadcasters continue to pile into women's sport. Another reminder this week that women's sport is absolutely booming and the numbers continue to be impossible to ignore. So, across global football, for example, or soccer, the momentum continues to build apace. Mary Fowler signed a $10 million deal for Adidas, one of the biggest in women's football history. Meanwhile, the San Diego Wave inked US women's national team star Katerina Macario in a record NWSL deal. She's going to earn about $8 million over 5 seasons. This weekend, Denver's new NWSL team set the national benchmark for club soccer. They got a league attendance record of over 63,000 fans going to the game, and that also made it a record for attendance of a standalone women's soccer game in the US to date as well. So lots happening in the US around soccer football, but this goes beyond talent as well. So broadcasters and media companies are building now dedicated women's sport portfolios beyond just one-off events. This week, Sky Sports signed a multi-year deal with influencer Jake Paul's Most Valuable Promotions organization to broadcast boxing events in the UK, including a regular all-female fight cards. Earlier this month, the PWHL, which is the Professional Women's Hockey League, chose Scripps Sports to broadcast the game on ION in a one-time deal that could potentially turn into a long-time partnership. So their president, the president of Scripps Sports, Brian Lawler, said, proven itself out, which is why it makes sense to keep doubling down. What he was referencing was that Scripps, the organization that owns ION, which is a network reaching 126 million US households, had previously acquired rights to the WNBA and the NWSL, and now it has added in the PWHL to its portfolio as well. This, of course, is an ongoing signal that women's sport is central to growth strategies. Women's sport, we know, has been historically undervalued compared to men's leagues, but is now seen as high growth, high potential, and recognised as an asset class for investors. A couple of days still in US sports, it was announced that the NFL is developing a new professional flag football league for both women and men. Flag football, what we would call here in the UK American football, what in the US is just called football, with a broad and influential investor pool. So that includes NFL clubs, established institutional and strategic investors, and current and former NFL players. So to reiterate, they are developing this league for both women and men in concert. Arthur Blank, who acquired the Atlanta NWSL franchise for $165 million at the end of last year, was back in the news this week after announcing their new president of soccer across the Atlanta team. So again, he was talking at the Sport Business Journal conference about the focus on finance in the growth of women's sport and looking at bottom line. So a lot of women's sports news this week around investment, around broadcast, around talent, and around reach. The continued meteoric growth of women's sport offers brands and investors the opportunity to reach new audiences, access new revenue streams, and secure high returns. But of course, this is the Climate of Sport podcast. So the reason I'm talking about it is because it benefits society and the planet as well. Research shows that women's sports fans are more likely to have a values-first mindset and prioritize brands that demonstrate integrity and social responsibility. So in the environmental space, we can see that female athletes are more likely to use their platforms to advocate for causes they care about. So as their platform grows, as investment continues, as it becomes more mainstream, so does the reach of the messaging, and that can only be a good thing for the environment and our society. As a reminder, with record-breaking viewership, expanding sponsorship investment, and this fan base driven by values, women's sports presents the chance for brands to align with purpose-driven engagement. And investors and sponsors who recognize this are not only securing financial returns, but also contributing to a more inclusive, responsible, and sustainable sports ecosystem.